Welcome back to the deep dive. You know the drill. Grab a pile of sources, articles, research, videos, our own notes, and we pull out those essential bits of knowledge. The goal is always that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Maybe some surprising facts, little humor, keep you listening. So today we're diving headfirst into something pretty disruptive. It's a deep dive sparked by a YouTube video from Artificially Aware. And that video digs deep into Jed McKenna's book, Spiritual Enlightenment, The Damnedest Thing. Mm-hmm. Our mission here, really cut through the usual noise, the platitudes, and get to the raw stuff, the uncomfortable insight. This material, it challenges pretty much everything we think we know about spiritual paths. This isn't about finding easy peace. It's about honesty, a radical kind.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how it just completely flips the script on what most of us assume about a spiritual. It strips away all the comfort layers, demands this almost brutal honesty. And the video really nails this. Jed McKenna isn't your typical at all. Like, you won't find the robes or the smiling pictures or this neat little story about his lineage. And that absence, that's actually key to his whole message. He refuses to be another idol, right? Another concept for people to just cling on to.
Right. And that, I think, leads us straight to the big, maybe unsettling question we're exploring today. What if everything you've been told about awakening is just wrong? What if enlightenment isn't about getting filled with light and love, but about, demolition? So how does McKenna even start to unpack something that radical?
Well, his introduction is, it's deliberately disorienting. It really is. He doesn't preach. He's not standing on some lofty spiritual stage. The source describes his tone as super casual, almost like he's ordering fries. And this lack of seriousness, it's revolutionary because it instantly strips the grandeur away, from the very thing seekers chase their whole life. It just refuses to create that distance. It announces right off the bat, enlightenment is not special. It is not a trophy. It forces you to ask, wait, has my whole search been based on...
That's such a stark contrast. You show up expecting, fireworks, some profound definition, and you get silence.
Yeah.
The video calls it a demolition job on expectations, like he's deflating the balloon before you even see it rise. So if it's not some big climax, what is it then, according to McKenna?
He frames it as an eraser. That's the word. Enlightenment isn't adding bliss, it's subtracting. And it can feel almost cruel, because it deliberately rips away that comforting glow, that feeling so many seekers, they get addicted. It's basically saying, where you thought you'd find treasure, there's just a void. And that void, that clearing out, that's actually the point.
And his honesty is?
That's what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Is savage. He really doesn't seem to care if you like it or if you buy into it.
Yeah.
What's surprising, though, is the humor. It plays this weird, almost surgical role. It's not really there to make you laugh, is it? The video calls it a scalpel. Uses it to undercut the pomp of spiritual seriousness. So the humor kind of disarms even as it dismantles.
Yeah, and this brings us to something really crucial and honestly pretty frustrating for a lot of He just refuses to define enlightenment clearly. He completely dodges that trap. So instead of a neat little definition you get, he leaves it as an absence, a clearing, the exposure of false. So that refusal to define it, that becomes the definition in a way. That ambiguity, as the source notes, it's not a weakness, it is the point. Because if you could bottle it up and define it, it would just be another illusion, wouldn't it? Another thing to grasp onto.
Okay, so after that totally disorienting start, he really doubles down on unsettling you. He throws you right into paradox. He calls it a built-in fault line, right? This unavoidable contradiction when humans try to talk about, the indescribable. Like he says, enlightenment cannot be spoken, yet here we are speaking about it. Bam.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how he just wields paradox like a sledgehammer. It's this stark reminder that all our neat little boxes, our cherished categories and clean distinctions are irrelevant. Our usual tools, logic, reason, science, philosophy, they collapse. Enlightenment, for him, it isn't just irrational, it's transrational. It operates beyond reason, shows you how limited our thinking really is.
And it's not a riddle you're supposed to solve, is it? You don't figure it out and find clarity. Instead, the source says the seeker short circuit. The contradiction just hangs there. And in that failure to resolve it, that's where the opening is.
Exactly. It's like cognitive dissonance stretched until something snaps, pushing you out of that desperate need for answers, forcing you maybe to sit in the discomfort of not knowing.
Which isn't entirely new, right?
No, not at all. This has deep roots. Think about Zen masters hitting students with koans, those crazy riddles. The whole point isn't the answer. It's to break the normal thinking pattern, short-circuit the logic. Taoist sages, too, speaking in riddle. Language kind of has to trip over itself to even get close to truth. The aim is always to push you past that craving, just exist in the not knowing.
Okay, so after all that mental demolition, he hits you with something really simple, but incredibly blunt. One word. Done. No fancy stuff, no soft landing, just like the source says, the clean finality of a single syllable. It's such an everyday word for something so profound.
Right. And here, enlightenment isn't framed as something you achieve, something you strive for. It's framed as completion. It means the wheel stops turning, the chase ends, the idea of a path evaporates. And that's a direct challenge, a really radical one, to that whole endless cycle of spiritual seeking, the one that fuels countless books and retreats and gurus.
So done isn't just another stop on the spiritual highway. He's saying done is the road itself vanishing under your feet because there's nowhere else to go. It completely pulls the rug out from under that whole idea that the journey or the progress is the point.
And it also means, the annihilation of the seeker's identity, the ego, right, our sense of me. The ego loves projects, it thrives on goals, on becoming something more. So to tell it the game's over, the project's finished. That's basically its death sentence. Done doesn't mean you're resting at the finish line. It means the traveler, the seeker, they've dissolved. It's the annihilation of the seeker's identity disguised as a single everyday. Pretty clever, huh?
Yeah. But also terrifying for a lot of people because it really does cancel the future. There's no better version of you coming, no more self-improvement projects. It's finished.
Yeah. It is terrifying, but there's also this huge liberation in it, in that finality. Done means no more running, no more chasing. It just erases the hunger altogether. Profound, not because it's blissful or exciting, but just because it's utterly still.
Okay, but just when you think you've maybe settled into that starkness, he does something kind of weird, right? He throws you into Oz.
Yeah.
Like The Wizard of Oz, this Technicolor fairy tale, a Hollywood myth, becomes the stage for human delusion. Why Oz? The video suggests is because it's universal, because its child hits close to home.
Yeah, he deliberately uses the story everyone knows, makes it impossible to ignore the parallels. That yellow brick road, that becomes the spine of human spirit. That shiny path, promising you'll finally arrive somewhere special. And McKenna's point is brutal. Your spiritual path isn't noble. Theater. Ouch.
And the character. The scarecrow needing a brain, the tin man needing a heart, the lion needing courage. They're perfect mirrors of seekers convinced they're missing something essential. But McKenna points out the obvious, doesn't he? He says, the path is a scam because the lack you believe in is imaginary. You were complete before you started walking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the wizard. He gets unmasked as the great and powerful fraud. He's a stand-in for every guru, every priest, every self-help expert who claims they have the secret sauce you're missing. That moment, when Toto pulls back the curtain. That's the essence of awakening. It's not some mystical union with God. It's disillusionment. Pure and simple. Finding out the booming voice is just some guy pulling levers.
But here's the kicker, right? Humans often prefer the illusion. The show is comfort, the source says. The crowd doesn't want the curtain pulled back. They want the smoke and mirrors, the drama, not the plain reality.
Exactly. And that's where the savage satire really lands. Using a kid's story, he basically frames your most serious spiritual quest as no more sophisticated than a bedtime fable. It's incredibly insulting to the ego, which takes itself so seriously, but it's also incredibly freeing. Humor, for him, it becomes a weapon sharper than anger. Just cuts right through all that self-importance.
Wow. Okay, so after the fairy tale, McKenna hits you with something. There's no sugarcoating this one. Come back when you're dead.
He's not being metaphorical, is he? It's blunt. Death is the entry.
Yeah, but not physical death. Let's be clear on that. No, it's about the end of the self you think you are. The personality, the ego construct. It's about extinction of that me. McKenna really insists death is not an obstacle on the path. It is the path. Mm-hmm. His point is there's no such thing as an enlightened me. Yeah. There's only no me. Right, the ego. And then right after that, he throws what the video calls another Molotov cocktail tossed into the aisle of a New Age bookstore. Mm-hmm. This statement, I don't do heart, which just feels almost blasphemous in a world where spirituality and lovey-dovey feelings are practically synonyms.
It's a direct hit, a total rejection of that sentimental idol that the spiritual marketplace has erected. All the love talk is seductive because it gives seekers exact reassurance, comfort, belonging. McKenna just calls it numbing yourself. Truth, he insists, isn't wrapped in rose petals. It's jagged, unsentimental, and inhumanly indifferent. It just is. Our feelings about it don't.
And the cost of that stance seems pretty clear. Rejecting heart means rejecting the communal comfort it brings. It makes his position and anyone adopting it feel incredibly isolated, almost alien. So from there, McKenna shifts perspective again. He introduces this view that life is a game. He says, you memorize the moves, you chase the prizes, and you never stop to ask who designed the board. It's kind of chilling, isn't it?
It really is. He talks about adopting this double stance. You stay in the game, you keep playing, but the stakes, they just evaporate. It's not renunciation, it's perspective. It's about playing wholeheartedly in a game you know is safe. Yeah. You don't necessarily drop out of. You just see through it while still participate. But that existential weight?
Yeah, but it sounds like there's a real loneliness in this clarity. The video paints this picture of being the only sober person in a drunken bar. It's a profound maybe isolating.
Definitely. And that's why humor, again, becomes the natural response. Laughter, in this context, it's almost a way of breathing through the absurdity of watching everyone else chase money, fame, love, like it's the ultimate reality, while you see the strings, you see the stage.
Okay, next up, he tackles that really famous Zen koan, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him.
Yeah.
The source says, the violence of the instruction is the point. It's meant to shock you awake, basically.
Yeah, it's a call for metaphorical murder, obviously. It signals the end of project. Stop outsourcing your wisdom, your authority, onto someone else, even the Buddha. McKenna sees authority as the ego's last fortress, and that command, it cuts the cord. Demands you find truth within, not from some external figure.
And after tearing down idols, he makes this declaration almost chillingly simple. There is only one truth.
And what's really striking there is how it just flies in the face of modern relativism. You know, all the talk of my truth and your truth. McKenna's basically saying, look, talking about many truths is just another way of saying no.
Yeah.
He insists on a single, unchanging, absolute truth. And this, he argues, annihilates the ego's last defense. That little illusion that I am special, that my insight is unique.
Wow. And then he pushes even harder.
Oh.
He asks this incredibly jarring personal question. Would you murder me? It feels like a direct attack on your deepest moral program.
It is. That question, as the source notes, it exposes the deepest layer of your immediate reaction, that revulsion. He suggests it's not really compassion. It's more like ingrained fear for your own survival, a defense. Morality, he argues, it's an invention, a collective contract. It's not baked into reality itself. Truth doesn't care about ethics. The question forces you to face that shadow, part you deny, the part capable of anything if you strip away.
Okay, deep breath. After the weight of that, McKenna then throws you into this vastness, open sky. The description is no walls, no ceiling, nothing to grip. It sounds gentle, but the implication feels huge.
Yeah, the video clarifies this really well. Illusions are like cages. Once they collapse, what's left is the openness of sky. It's infinity in every direction, vast, utterly indifferent. And the sky is not a reward, it's exposure. It's just the simple, unadorned reality once all the belief structures crumble away.
And then snap, back to immediate, right here, right now. He insists enlightenment isn't way off in the future. It's not a destination, it's not deferred.
And this just dismantles the most seductive story of all. The story of progress, making spiritual gains. He says it flat out. There is no staircase. There are no levels. Truth isn't a gradient. It's binary. You're either seeing it or you're not. Period. And the ego, it cannot survive without narrative, without that story of becoming better, getting closer. Immediacy demands its death.
Finally, in this section, he uses this really powerful image from Hindu myth, Paspatastra, Shiva's ultimate weapon.
Yeah, connecting this to the bigger picture, that mythic weapon represents truth itself. The weapon annihilates every path, and that's exactly what truth does when it's seen. It leaves no survivors in the realm of illusion. It portrays enlightenment as detonation, a total wipeout. And guess who gets hit first? The ego is always the first casualty.
So the weapon has fired. The city of illusion is just rubble. And he states bluntly, no belief is true. It's like he's poking fun, he adds. Big hitter the llama.
Yeah, that's McKenna basically ridiculing the spectacle of a spiritual celebrity standing under spotlight. He's saying charisma is a performance. It's designed to attract followers. And he argues the more popular a figure is, the less likely it is they're pointing to truth, because truth never sells in bulk. Truth, for him, it's a solitary thing, often unpalatable, not easily packed.
He then turns the focus on himself. Just brief. With this simple, almost flat statement, I've done what I came to do. It feels very understated.
It completely strips away the fantasy of mission, right? Of having some grand spiritual purpose. He essentially dissolves purpose altogether, saying, look, it's the erasure of the illusion that there was ever some first, or that his own writing had some cosmic meaning beyond just doing.
Then he introduces this really interesting image, the uncherished sword.
Yeah, that's truth, he implies. It's a weapon, sharp and functional, that just exists to cut through illusion. That's its job. Truth is use, not possession. The ego wants trophies, right? It wants to own truth like a medal, display it. But the uncherished sword, it shatters that idea. It's just a tool. You use it. You don't hang it on the wall.
And then probably the ultimate rejection, 2 words, a bomb, fuck, bliss. Followed by that unsettling question, adapted from Whitman but twisted. Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born?
Yeah, that question just undercuts the very baseline assumption you're standing on. We're all taught life is a gift, right? McKenna challenges that head on. He suggests that to be born is to be condemned to suffering. This scathing critique of the cruelty of indoctrination that paints existence as inherently good, another narrative he wants to tear down.
And he points instead to raw human thing.
Yeah, the basics: hunger, sex, aging, sickness, death. These things, he says, are what you are once you strip away all the spiritual pretension. It's the demolition of the spiritual dream, the refusal to pretend we're anything more than these physical, often messy realities.
But then, after all that harshness, there's this surprising turn, almost poetic.
Yeah.
Even the poorest thing shines.
Right. It's not just terrifying emptiness left over. It's a kind of radiance, an inherent shining that emerges when the illusions are gone. Ordinary radiance, he suggests. It's the most overlooked phenomenon. And this connects beautifully to Whitman, who, as the source mentions, expands and sings about the simple stuff, blades of grass, atoms, bodies, gestures, seeing the light in the ordinary.
So, okay. After all this demolition, all this brutal clarity, McKenna's answer to that huge question, what's the point? Surprisingly simple. The point of the ride is the ride.
That's it. Meaning, no hidden mission, no destination waiting at the end, no higher payoff. He argues that the whole search for purpose is just another ego trick, trying to give itself meaning. For McKenna, pointlessness isn't despair, it's freedom. Freedom from the burden of needing some grand cosmic reason for it all.
And the state that results from all that, it's described as so placid and self-contained, calm.
Which is exactly the opposite of what seekers want, isn't it? They want the fireworks, the visions, the big dramatic finale. But truth, he suggests, doesn't explode, it levels out into this profound stillness, which most seekers probably walk right past, looking for something shinier.
And finally, one last jarring, kind of humorous statement, maybe just to shake us out of being too serious about it all. I don't eat human eyeballs.
Yeah, it's grotesque, comic, and pointed all at once. It absolutely shocks you out of reverence. And it's clearly mocking the assumption that awakening turns someone into an alien creature with weird powers or habits. Ultimately, it's saying awakening isn't about becoming otherworldly. It's about being so human that you no longer need to prove it with tricks or strange behavior. Ordinary, but seen different.
So after this relentless journey, this stripping away of everything, McKenna leaves us with this final question. It's maddening, but also weirdly freeing. It just hangs there. Why not?
It totally denies closure, doesn't it? It's like the final strike disguised as a joke, the silence disguised as language. It just refuses the ego, its last comfort, that need for a neat ending, a final answer, a resolution.
And it feels like a direct challenge, an invitation, really, to you listening right now. Why not awaken? Why not see through your illusions right now? Why wait for the perfect teacher or the perfect practice or the perfect timing? Why not now?
Exactly. That simple question. It just cuts off excuses before they can even form. And it puts the responsibility squarely back on you. The question doesn't end, it kind of infects it. It lingers, dares you to stop putting off what he implied.
Here's where it gets really interesting for our deep dive. We've seen that becoming truly well-informed sometimes means, well, being willing to ditch what you thought. Even about something as big as enlightenment, McKenna just relentlessly strips away the illusions, the expectations, the comfort, leaving you with something stark, undeniable.
Yeah, connecting this to the bigger picture, this whole deep dive, it really pushes us to question our, not just about spirituality, but, about life itself.
Yeah.
The core takeaway seems to be that truth, at least in this view, isn't about finding bliss or reaching some higher state. It's about a radical demolition, often uncomfortable, a demolition of everything you cling to.
So you've just been exposed to a perspective that, well, it doesn't hand you a cozy blanket. It hands you a sharp blade. It's definitely a lot to chew on. Challenges the very foundation of how many of us think about growth, understanding,
And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If, like McKenna suggests, the point of the ride is just the ride itself. And if truth is ultimately indifferent to our feelings, our desires, then what actually motivates us? Either to keep seeking or maybe just to be. What anchors you when all those illusions of purpose and comfort are just gone and there's only that raw, indifferent sky left?
So we'll leave you to sit with that final, maybe haunting question. Why not? What does that stir up in you? Let it linger. See what happens.